Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are back on the path to the Amalfi and we're on tier 6, which means we are on the Zara. But before we get into that, you guys know we are on the path to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you guys haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Punch that subscribe button and share it with your friends and family. Because you never know. If you like it, they might as well. So, let's look at our commander. We have changed over from using a dispersion / armor piercing commander to the Francesco Mimbelli commander. And let's go over it. We are running Jerzy Swirsky and Gunichi Makawa for ultimate concealment on these things. We have Ingenious because reasons you need to know what's shooting at you, to be honest. You could go with Armor Piercer here, but reducing incoming splash damage is big, as well as getting your guns to traverse a little faster. Also nice because you're going to be doing a lot of kiting / twist and track, like twisting away, trying to keep your torpedoes firing if you can. But we're also running full speed ahead, steer clear. And we are running, or not steer clear, Velocious and steer clear. That's what we're going for. You could switch out Velocious for Sponge, which reduces damage even further, if you would like to. But yeah, you could switch this over, but I wouldn't recommend it. You lose half of your range, which is kind of ridiculous. I don't understand why. Like, getting a little bit faster torpedoes and you lose literally 40% of your range seems a little busted, considering these aren't particularly amazing torpedoes to begin with. But we are running fully packed. Okay. So let's look at our build. We are fully upgraded, but we are also using Aiming Systems Mod 1. This I didn't actually change to this because we already have the perk helping us in the other one. You could use this, but honestly the guns are traversing okay as is, so you don't necessarily need this. So having a little bit more accuracy is going to come in handy. Alright. Propulsion mod, because you're going to do a lot of starting and stopping in these ships, and you need the ability to get moving again quickly, okay? It's part of your dodging in these ships. You need it, okay? And then, of course, concealment system mod, because we're running sneaky build, okay? This is a very sneaky build for a cruiser, and you'll see what I mean when we get into the stats. But we are running fully upgraded, and we are running the SAP, okay? And always, I recommend you guys use a SAP, learn how to use it. It is very nice when you do figure it out. It doesn't work all the time, but when it does work, it is pretty disgusting. So find the weak spots that you can exploit on any ship at any given time. Anything that's not a battleship is going to get slaughtered by the SAP. And I do mean that. Cruisers, destroyers, they take ridiculous amounts of damage from them. So keep that in mind. But battleships have a lot more armor, so you're going to shatter here and there, but superstructure's always open for business. We talk about that a lot. Also, bow and stern side plating and upper side plating. Trying to get those shells to land above the belt on a lot of battleships is a good idea. So try to do that if you can. Other than that, if you're at decent range, you could potentially get plunging fire with these, but honestly, I prefer the 152s over the 203s. If these things stayed as light cruisers in this game, I wouldn't have been upset, because I prefer the light cruisers over the heavy cruisers so far. But we're also going up against more armor and stuff, so it makes sense that it's a little bit more difficult to have those ridiculous games. Though we are going to showcase a pretty solid game for you guys. Let's get into the loadout. Of course, we're running SAP. We've got the smoke. Do not swap your smoke for a defensive AA. It's not worth it. Having those get out of jail free cards is always nice. Okay? We are running the Italian Unity flag because if you squint just right, it looks like a Spartan helmet. And we are running Type 4 camo because, again, having some camo is going to help. That incoming fire dispersion nerf to the enemies, and then of course the C detectability range. Again, we are very sneaky. Specs, let's see what we got. Survivability, 37,100 hit points with a 19% damage reduction for torps. Okay. Artillery, 203 millimeter, 53 caliber, and Saldo 1927s. You get 8 of them, firing out to just 14.6 kilometers. If there's one thing that I miss about the other build, it is range. So you may decide if you're running this build to slap on the booster. That'll give you a little bit more. It'll give you like an extra half a kilometer. So you'll be at like 15.1 probably firing range. But yeah, this build is not about range. But then again, I mean, with as sneaky as you are, it's not as big of a problem. And a 180-degree turn times on your turrets, just 21 seconds basically. So not too shabby there. Still not great for a cruiser. You could buff that further using the main battery mod in the first one. So if that's something you're interested in, that could also help. AP shell maximum damage 4,800 with a SAP shell maximum damage of 5,050. Okay. Secondaries, 100mm 47 caliber auto 1928s. You get 12 of them, reaching out to 4.7 kilometers, firing every 6 seconds. They fire HE with a maximum shell damage of 1,500 with a 6% chance to set fires. Torpedoes, you have the 533mm Tubo Lancialuris. You get 6 of them. You get a triple launcher on either side of the ship. They reload relatively quickly, only 71 seconds, so a minute and 11 seconds. Maximum damage is not very high at 13,500. The torpedo detectability is fantastic at 1 kilometer. Only ones that beat that is the Russians, so keep that in mind. And then torpedo range, actually, I lied, the Pan-Asians might actually give that a run for its money too, because they have deep water torpedoes. But torpedo range, not as good as I thought it would be, to be honest. It's only 10 kilometers. Like, remember when we had like 13-kilometer range at low tiers? Why do we not have like higher range torps at higher tiers? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The torps still very slow, 53 knots. So they're defensive torpedoes. You can use them when you get up close and personal. They do have very, very good torpedo angles on these things, so keep that in mind. But they are mounted centrally on the ship, so sometimes you get them knocked out, so keep that in mind. AA defense. 20mm 65 caliber Beretta 1939s, you get 10 of them, reaching out to 2 kilometers, doing 23 damage per second. Then you have the 20mm 65 caliber Beretta 1935s, you get 8 of them, doing 14 damage per second, reaching out to 2 kilometers. Then you have the 37mm 54 caliber Beretta 1938s, you get 12 of those, doing 70 damage per second, reaching out to 3.5 kilometers. And then, of course, you have the 100mm 47 caliber auto 1928 dual-purpose secondaries. You get 12 of those, doing 40 damage per second, reaching out to just 4 kilometers. Maneuverability, and that's why I say don't spec into your defensive AA, because the AA here basically doesn't exist. So, don't do it. Maneuverability. Maximum speed with this build, because we're going speed. Speed is what we need, and concealment, and that gives us 35.3 knots of top speed, which honestly not particularly amazing for what you're giving up. So you could potentially change the speed out, but having a little bit of extra speed is not going to hurt you. Turning circle radius, though, 580 meters is pretty good. Rudder shift time is 8.4 seconds. You could decide if you wanted to buff your steering, try to get that down even lower, but honestly, the steering's fine. I haven't had any issues dodging shells with it as is. I'm used to battleships, though, so I'm used to even longer rudder shifts, so this has been fine for me. And the ships do react really quickly to the rudder, so it's pretty nice there, too. So, concealment. This is where this thing is pretty freaking disgusting. 8.5 kilometers with this build. 8.5 kilometers by sea, 5.6 by air. 2 is always guaranteed, and this is something you need to know. Detectability while firing in smoke, because we have the heavy cruiser guns, the 203s, is 6 kilometers. That's fantastic for 203s, by the way. Don't get that twisted. All right, this is literally like a British light cruiser detectability in smoke with their 152s. So, pretty good for 203s. All right. Statistics. This is the part where we show that I have not done particularly well in this ship, and it's not necessarily my fault. The ship is not particularly amazing. It has very low DPM. The torpedoes are ho-hum at best if you ever hit them. If you do hit them, they basically do no damage. It's kind of like shoving Benham torps out there, except you only get 6 of them. All right. We've played 9 battles in them. We've won 5 of them, so that we do have a positive win rate, so 56% there. Main gun accuracy is still fantastic on these, 51%. Like, these guns always go where you need them to go until you're shooting SAP, in which case they have homing beacons for the armor of a ship, I swear to God. Average results per battle, we managed to get an average of 1,594 base XP. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. All right. We're doing pretty well in the spotting department, 1.4 per game, right? Damage upon our spotting, not particularly high, because generally speaking, our teammates are never around. You guys know how that goes. But our potential damage is also pretty high for a cruiser, 810,000 average, okay? With our highest ever being 1.2 million in a cruiser with an exposed citadel. It's a little scary. But anyway, let's get to the armor of this ship. All right, so you've got a 16mm deck. You've got 16mm bow. Basically, this means that you're getting overmatched by any battleship caliber guns, period. Literally, any battleship shoots at your bow, you're going to get overmatched. So you've got to lift the skirt, boys. Learn to get the bow out of the way. Everybody likes to cry that they don't have a 32mm bow. I don't have 32mm of bow armor. Well, you know this, so stop using your bow as the only thing to protect you. You know they overmatch your bow. Guess what they don't overmatch? Your side armor. So start utilizing the side armor. I know, it's crazy. How dare I actually make sense here? You have ridiculously good side armor. You have, 30mm upper plating. Okay? That does not get overmatched by anything except for 17.5-inch guns and above, right? I believe. Maybe it's 18-inch guns. I know the Yami overmatches 32. That's because he has 18.1-inch guns. He has 460mm guns, but 457s definitely overmatch 30mm because the Georgia overmatches the Edinburgh's bow, and the Edinburgh has a 30mm bow. But that's it. 16-inch guns, 15-inch guns, 14-inch guns, a lot of the stuff that you're going to be going up against at Tier 6, they don't overmatch. Okay? Utilize the side armor. It is fantastic. The only thing that you've got to be aware of is the fact that you do still have that exposed citadel. That is not belt armor. That is actually a citadel armor belt. So your citadel is literally sitting there begging for it, but it's 150 millimeters thick. So if you angle even a little bit, you're fine. Okay? Nothing is going to overmatch that citadel armor belt as long as you're angled. Okay, the problem is when you're getting all squirrely and jiggy with it, trying to dodge and get pretty and drop torps and things, you get caught. And when you over-angle, as you can see, this ship sits pretty high out the water, okay? And guess where most people know to shoot nowadays? Most people know that the citadel is located at the waterline between the front and the rear turret. That's pretty obvious. Most people know that, okay? So, they're going to be shooting at your citadel. Be aware. Don't over-angle. If you over-angle, you're going to get dev struck. Okay? You've got an exposed citadel. You know that now. You've seen it at Tier 5. Tier 5 was much, much worse. Tier 6, I have not had too much trouble getting citadeled in these things. These things are fantastically armored. Even with the exposed citadel, there's enough armor there that you can bounce and shatter shells. You don't have the British heavy cruiser issue where they have limited armor above the citadel. So you don't get that plunging fire effect. Like, as long as you angle this thing relatively well, you're going to be fine. Okay? Just got to protect your bow and stern. Do not take rounds in the bow and the stern. That is it. It's that simple. Okay? Otherwise, these things are decently tanky for cruisers. And you can have quite a bit of fun in these things. It doesn't always end in your favor, and you don't have the highest DPM, and you don't have that damage over time of the crutch that all cruisers fall back on, which is the AG, because you're using SAP. But I'm telling you, when you learn how to use the SAP properly, it does reward you. But hidden, good concealment means the ship can get closer to enemies before being detected. That comes in handy, okay? Capping bases, anti-destroyer. Despite the fact that you don't have any like sonar or anything like that, you've got to be careful early in the game hunting destroyers because that'll get you killed. Because, again, while it does have decent armor belt, if you got the entire enemy team shooting at you, bad things happen, right? You're going to get caught. Somebody's going to get the pin through somewhere that's not going to be preferable. All right, but it does come equipped with SAP, or you can equip it. Sluggish shot is bullshit. I'm sorry, Wargaming, you're wrong here. I don't know why you call this sluggish shot. All right, this is not sluggish shot. This thing has almost purely flat trajectory. Like, these are like lasers going to the target. These are not sluggish. I'm sorry. Like, whoever came up with this as a descriptor for this particular ship is on crack. So, it is not sluggish. They have laser beams. Okay? So, as I showed, I'm not the most accurate thing in the world. 51% freaking main gun accuracy. So, you can tell me that they're hard to shoot. I don't think so. Zara. During the pre-war period, she was one of the best heavy cruisers in the world. The ship offered favorably from most contemporary counterparts, differed favorably from most contemporary counterparts, by her good armor protection and overall well-balanced characteristics, but most of all by her armament and speed. She entered service in 1931, and there were 4 of them in the series. And honestly, I've enjoyed my time in the ship, despite the fact that I haven't had the most success in the ship. I've had a pretty good time. Like, I've had, like, 1 bad match. Everything else has been pretty solid, you know, right at my average damage or slightly above average damage. I've not had a whole lot of trouble in these ships of doing what I need to do. I've had 1 bad match where I thought I could get into a cap and protect against the destroyer, and I managed to get myself spotted, and I got hit hard early, damage conned, immediately got set on a double fire by an Azuma. And then, of course, a Nelson hits me and gets a 3rd fire. So I had 3 fires take all of my health, which is not ideal. But that was really my only bad game, and I still ended up with like 60,000 damage in that game. So it's a solid ship. It really is. And you just got to learn to utilize the unique characteristics of the ships. And with all of that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on North, and I think this is the perfect game to showcase just what this thing is capable of. Now, it's not going to be the highest damage game in the world, and honestly, I don't think you're going to see super high damage games out of these things, but you are going to see winning games out of these ships, because as long as the person utilizing them knows what they're doing, you can move around the maps pretty freely and do what you need to win. This thing is essentially an overgrown destroyer at this like configuration, and you're gonna see me utilize it as such. Now, we only have 1 destroyer on each team in this game, right? Wrong. We have me, and I'm gonna use this thing just like a freaking destroyer, except it's got more offensive capabilities utilizing the guns than most destroyers do. So as long as you come into this line thinking that this thing is essentially an overgrown destroyer, then I think you're going to enjoy your time a lot more. Now, you'll see that I noticed that right out the gate, I'm looking at the white line when I check my torpedo range, because I'm not located. I don't think there's a destroyer here. We're just going to push straight into the Charlie Cap, and we get the New Mexico spotted. Now, I have 2 battleships behind me who should be taking full advantage of the fact that we get this New Mexico spotted. But as you guys know, that's not how teams work in World of Warships Legends. People don't shoot things when they're spotted. People try to do whatever they want to do, which is usually nothing. But as you can see, this New Mexico is actually pushing, and in true Spartan fashion, every time I launch torpedoes, the person immediately changes what they're doing. Like, I'm thinking, okay, he's just going to charge forward, we're going to launch those torps. Nope, he decides to immediately turn as soon as I launch the torps. It's not like he started the turn, it's like he knows as soon as I launch the torpedoes, and then he immediately changes course. So those torps have no chance of doing anything. But here, we're going to utilize our smoke. We're going to get the cap. You guys can see it's going to take 45 seconds. We have a decent amount of time before the smoke clears. The New Mexico is going. We've got SAP loaded, and there you go. 7,000, almost 8,000 damage with SAP there. Notice that I'm aiming high. I want to hit the squishier armor and superstructure preferably. But you can also see the superstructure is already getting saturated on that thing. I mean, hitting him for 8,000 damage almost in one shot is quite bad. Now, here, the New Mexico, again, this is the weakness of these torpedoes. They're so freaking slow that this guy literally was sailing in a straight line for like 5 minutes, decides to turn out for no reason, and then that's when he's able to dodge. But there we put 8 SAP rounds into the squishy parts of his ship, and we are able to absolutely chunk him for over 8,000 damage in that salvo. Here, we know he's coming to shoot us, so we're going to go ahead and turn in. We take a couple of HE shells from somebody over the island, but we were able to get the base capped, which is why that smoke comes in handy. And we have chunked this New Mexico. Notice that nobody else has shot this New Mexico. This is all our damage. And once again, we are just chunking him over and over again. We've taken half his health. Nobody else has shot him. Now here, unfortunately, we got our rudder damaged. So we couldn't avoid that guy if we wanted to. We just had to slow down, let him pass. Now, he's going to drop smoke, and then he's going to do, like, something insane. He's not just going to, like, drop smoke and sit in it and dack out the way you would expect. He's going to drop smoke and then sail out of it and dack it. I don't know. Maybe he just wanted to drop the smoke for me, but I don't have a rudder right now. We got 5 seconds before it gets finished. But we're going to utilize his smoke screen as a way to get some more shots out at this New Mexico. And keep an eye on this New Mexico. He and I are going to have some problems throughout this match. Basically, I'm going to be responsible, and almost solely responsible, for moving every ounce of hit points that this man has during the course of this fight, including some pretty crazy stuff later on. But here, you can see once again, he's within 10 kilometers. We're going to go ahead and chunk that superstructure. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, just learn how to lead, learn where your freaking shots are likely to hit, and try to get these SAP shells on target. When you're up against a battleship, if you miss a squishy spot on a battleship, you're going to be shattering. But if you hit it, oh, the damage is so good on these things. It is so much better than HE, with the exception of you don't get to set fire. That is the only downside to SAP, okay? But the damage that you're getting, pretty solid. As you can see, we just did even more damage to that guy. But rather than sit here, these guys are all running away. I'm going to try to put myself in a position at Bravo to potentially help the team. Unfortunately, there's going to be an enemy battleship that decides to go in and protect Bravo. I was thinking that I could just move in and do the exact same thing I just did at Charlie in Bravo and grab that cap just like a destroyer could. If I could grab that cap, then that gives us a huge advantage going into the end game, right? But the enemy Fuso has decided to push up into the cap, and not just that, there's an enemy Nelson that's going to double back and put himself in a perfect position to counter us. So we're going to be forced to not be able to grab that cap, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean we can't absolutely annihilate things in the process. Now that Fuso is in a position where I can utilize island cover and lob it on him, which is beautiful for a cruiser. Any chance you get in a cruiser to use island cover to shoot battleships without them being able to see you is ideal, right? Now watch the sheer flat trajectories we're going to get shooting at this Fuso. Like these, it almost looks like these shells are not able to clear the island at all because they're going to go kind of through the trees. I don't know, apparently trees aren't modeled, but here you can see us taking another shot at the New Mexico as a parting gift. You can see he's running away. The Fuso is now backing out broadside in front of our team that has decided to finally push, and we are going to get some shots. Now, Fuso does not have a lot of superstructure. It has a gigantic pagoda, but it does not have a lot of superstructure hit points available. So you can see him being relatively well angled. I'm going to struggle with the SAP to find some effective damage, but that doesn't stop us. This is part of learning a ship, guys. You start shooting around until you find damage, right? That's what you can do. Now, one thing I could have done differently here is to load AP and try to break those turrets, because we are seeing the side armor of those turrets, and we just keep using the SAP trying to get some damage. And we're getting decent damage here. Each one of those shells doing 833 damage. I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad. If you get that times 8, I mean, you're doing, what, 6,400 damage? That's not bad. That's just rough math in my head, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But you can see Fuso decides, being broadside to everybody, probably not in his best interest, starts to charge forward, and now he's going to run right into me. He didn't even, well, I mean, he probably knew that I was here due to the fact I've been shooting him, but he couldn't see me until now. But at this point, he's on fire, he's got no hit points, he's dead. There's nothing he can do at this point. Now, one thing I will say is that you could potentially do some damage to the bow armor of most battleships, but I don't think that we actually get that in this never mind, I lied. We actually totally got that through the bow of his ship. So, I wouldn't recommend it as an every sort of thing, especially as you get past these tier 5, tier 6 battleships, because then you get up into 32mm bow battleships, and I don't think we have enough penetration with SAP to go through 32. At least I don't think we do. But you can see I'm thinking about going into the cap, and that's when we notice the Nelson is coming back. Now remember, we have 8.5 kilometer detectability. So rather than trying to get in here and dealing with a Nelson that could potentially ruin us with AP or HE up close and personal, we are going to try to get around the flanks and see if we can't help the team that way. Now we have 2 of the 3 caps, so that's going to be an advantage for us going forward. Unfortunately, we had a lot of shells not hit the target there. But again, we are not running a dispersion build. This is not an accuracy build. This is a, you know, have speed, have concealment build. That's all this is. So this is like base level performance out of the guns that you're ever going to get. Like that's what I'm talking about. These guns are fantastic. The armor piercing angle's not the greatest in the world. They seem to shatter and bounce even on decent side, like decent shots. But the SAP, oh, I'm telling you, man, when you get good looks with the SAP, it's pretty disgusting. You can see we're getting a lot of misses here. And again, if you want to build into accuracy, go for it. I think they're accurate enough as is, so utilizing some of your perks to get other things buffed about your ship is probably your best bet. But we're trying to be sneaky. We get some torpedoes through the islands. Unfortunately, only 1 torpedo made it through the island. And, yeah, it's not ideal. But West Virginia here, we take a shot, thinking we're going to finish him off. Unfortunately, leave him with just enough to get away. We did manage, that 1 torpedo that we sent out there did manage to hit the Nelson and cause a flood, which is huge. And we managed to avoid all of his shells. You can see West Virginia is just begging for it. We're like, oh, we could potentially pick him up here. We got the shells on the way, and just before our shells get there, unfortunately, the Queen Elizabeth hits him with HE and finishes them off. Nelson, rather than chasing a kite, I know, crazy. People are learning. Instead of chasing me, obviously trying to pull him away from the cap, he decides to go back in and fight the rest of my team, right? So, big props to the Nelson for recognizing when you're not at an advantage here. So, trying to do that is not going to do you any good. Chasing me is not doing you any good. I'm pulling you away from your objectives. But he goes back, disengages. Now, that gives us time to focus down the guide. We get a good shot out initially. Only 1 shell managing to hit the target. And again, this is one of those times where you just need more than 1 shell to hit the target and they die, right? We're trying to save our destroyer. Unfortunately, not able to save our destroyer. But we get close enough to keep the Getty spotted. And we hit him with another single shell, of course, because why would we finish him off? But we are going to, before he gets to disengage, fire a couple more shells out over the bow. All we need is a single shell to hit him, and down he goes. That's huge. Getting rid of their destroyer takes away pretty much any chance they had of a comeback here. I was expecting my team to throw here. I'm being 100 with you guys. So I just anticipated my team throwing this game away. Now, their Dallas is coming in. I'm seeing his health. I'm like, okay, SAP easy mode. This guy's dead. Like he's done. We take the shot, and the shells look like they're going to be fine, and they just went high. They split them. 1 fell short. The rest of them went high, and we completely missed them. And of course, by the time we get the shells firing again, right before they hit the target, he dies. And there goes our potential Kraken. We had 2 kills, the West Virginia and the Dallas, both yoinked away from us, unfortunately. But as you can see, our team is, in fact, dropping like flies. And now it is a 1v2 over there, and now it is a 1v1 over there, and we have a 1v1 over here. This is what you call not ideal. If you're in a 1v1 in a cruiser at close range against a battleship, 9 times out of 10, as long as that battleship has any sense, he's going to win that fight. Fortunately for me, we recognize that we're in trouble, and we slow down, we turn in, we get angled, we're going to eat a couple of shells, but again, look at that. It's like one overpin, maybe 2 overpins. It doesn't do, like, critical damage. We get torpedoes out against them because we're trying to position ourselves in a position. You can see I'm checking my smoke firing penalty. That anytime you see me do that, that's usually what I'm doing. So we're smoked up right now. He can't see us. His plane's in the air. He's hoping for the home run hit. He's not going to get it. I'm not going to fire my guns and give away my position when I have torpedoes on the way. And again, like, as long as this guy's not an idiot, he can dodge these torpedoes no problem, even from medium range here. But rather than sit here and wait for my smoke to dissipate, I'm going to use this smoke to start to angle. And then just as we get ready to be spotted, we get the guns away. And you can see I get 4 full penetrations, but no real damage out of that shot. And there we take another single hit for 2,000 damage. Like, this is where this ship is really, really nice. Battleship captains think that they are going to win these fights every single time. But as long as you have any common sense in these things, you can effectively completely annihilate a battleship from full health, because you're going to be firing 2 salvos for every single salvo that they fire, right? And then you stay angled. It gives you a really good opportunity to time out their shells, right? You know they're coming. Here you can see we actually take a pretty nasty chunk. That's why we don't give them the butt, right? We want it to be a little bit more agile there. Try to trick him. But you can also see, switching back to the SAP, I just absolutely annihilated him. So this is why I say the SAP is pretty nasty. Like, you can utilize the SAP much more effectively than the AP. If you get cruisers to shoot at, absolutely using the AP is an option. But even then, the SAP is so good. Like, it just is. So utilize the SAP whenever possible on these things, and you will have a good time. He slows down a little bit. We managed to miss him with torpedoes. I know the one time we overlead, but unfortunately for him, we're able to take him down. 1 minute to go. We've had the 2 cap advantage, or we've had a single extra cap advantage on them the entire time. The 2 battleships are doing circles over there around each other. I would, honestly, I wish there was a point where I could, like, just leave this camera and go see what he's doing. Like, there's nothing else for me to do at this point. We've won the game. So I wish I could see this fight, because it looks pretty funny on the map. Like, these guys are just doing circles. I don't know if Nelson's trying to ram him. I don't know, but they're just doing circles over there, like full-on like battleship tangos or waltz. I don't know. I don't know my dances very well, but you guys know what I'm saying. But 108,000 damage done. Only a single torpedo hit, but we did our job. We managed to move around the map, utilizing our concealment to get up close and personal when needed, using the SAP effectively, showcasing the difference between the SAP and the AP, thinking when we had an over-angled battleship that we could utilize the AP to do more damage. Turned out to be wrong. We actually did more damage with the SAP than we did with the AP. But seriously, solid game, 108,000 damage, 2,600 base XP, top of the leaderboard with 3 kills. Let me know what you guys think about the Italian cruisers. Do you like them? Do you dislike them? Let me know down in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.